Hello and welcome to the 6th edition on News Central TV, coming to you live from our studios in Abuja. I am Neota Egbe, and here are the top stories. Security forces strike hard, kill scores in Kogi bandit crackdown. Heavy security at Kanu Government House ahead of Governor Yusuf's planned defection from the NNPP. Iran says it's prepared for war if U.S. intervenes after hundreds were killed in protests. Details in a moment. We'll begin with security matters. Operatives in Kogi State have foiled a coordinated terrorist attack in Obajana after intense overnight operations around the Dangote cement factory access. Video from the area shows a heavy security presence with gunfire from elevated tactical positions as forces worked to stop the attackers and prevent a breach. Sources say the assailants arrived in large numbers late on Sunday night, targeting a police post at the Dangote cement factory. The attack is believed to be a reprisal following a recent military operation in which more than 200 terrorists were neutralized in the region. Earlier, security forces dismantled major bandit networks in a joint police and military operation. The Kogi State Police Command confirmed that scores of bandits were killed with support from the police air wing. Now, about that joint operation between the police and the military, the Kogi State Police Command has confirmed that scores of bandits were neutralized with support from the police wing. Authorities say the operation is part of an ongoing offensive to flush out criminal elements across the state. Residents have been urged to report suspicious movement using the police control room numbers provided. The operation follows recent rise in attacks, kidnappings, and violent incidents in several communities across Kogi State. And on a sad note, 4 people have been confirmed dead after bandits attacked Damala village in Wokop district of Bogu local government area, Niger State, in the early hours of Saturday. Police say the attackers rustled cattle, set several shops on fire, and escaped before security operatives arrived. This comes just a week after gunmen killed dozens of residents in nearby communities in Bogu and Agwara local government areas. The authorities say a clearance operation is ongoing, with security patrols stepped up to stop further attacks and arrest those responsible. Niger State remains one of the hardest hit areas as the country battles widespread banditry. Earlier in the day, a security expert, Dennis Amakri, spoke with us on the resurgence of attacks on local communities in parts of northern Nigeria, sharing his views on the growing threat. Now, banditry in Niger State has evolved from sporadic cattle rustling into a full-scale security crisis involving mass kidnappings, village massacres, and attacks on military personnel. Between 2018 and 2020, banditry in Niger State shifted from rural crime to territorial control. Insurgents began seizing communities in Munya and Shiroro, forcing farmers to pay harvest taxes to access their own lands. The crisis peaked in 2021 with high-profile mass abductions. Gunmen kidnapped 42 people from Kagara, 53 bus passengers in Kundu, and 136 children from Tegina, turning the state into a global center for school raids. Violence turned towards the military between 2022 and 2023. Notorious ambushes in Ajata Boki killed 34 security personnel, while a Nigerian Air Force helicopter was reportedly shut down during a rescue mission in Chukuba. Recent escalations in 2025 and 2026 have been devastating. Following the abduction of 300 students in Papiri, bandits slaughtered 70 people during a horrific market massacre in Kaswandaji, leaving over 100,000 residents displaced. Away from security matters, let's go talk a bit of politics. The Rivers State House of Assembly seems to be divided over its impeachment process against Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu, on allegations of gross misconduct. This comes as two members of the House addressed the media on Monday, appealing to their colleagues to tamper justice with mercy. The House Minority Leader, Sylvanus Nwankwo, representing Omuma constituency, and Peter Abe of Degema constituency at the briefing, called on Governor Siminalayi Fubara to embrace peace and the rule of law. They also urged restraint and dialogue amid the ongoing impeachment process.
Gentlemen, you are all aware that the Rivers State House of Assembly issued a notice of impeachment on the governor of Rivers State, Sir Siminalayi.
We do apologize about the heat on that video. We'll bring it to you in our subsequent bulletins. But let's look at another matter that has to do with party politics. There was palpable tension in Kano State as a combined team of heavily armed security operatives were sighted at the government house earlier today. Although no explanation has been given for their possible deployment, some residents believe it is connected to the reported plan by Governor Abba Yusuf to defect to the APC. Security personnel cited include operatives from the Nigeria Police and the Department of State Services. At least 7 armored personnel carriers were stationed strategically at different access points into the government house. Well, that was earlier in the day, but our correspondent Emmanuel Bagudu joins us from Kano State to give us an update on the situation. Hello, Emmanuel. Okay, so what's the situation now? I mean, those security personnel that were cited earlier in the day, have they left the government house or they're still there?
No, they're still there. In fact, I'm standing right in front of the security operatives, armored vehicles on the DSS and the police. They're putting all the streets connected to the government house. A tense situation. I have a lot of pedestrians, a lot of residents who would like to speak to you. I have a young lady here. Okay, zan ce gaya mana wannan al'amarin da ke Kano tsakanin wai shi da girma gwamna da ubangidan su kunkuso da ke kawo mana tashin hankali ya ke ji ke zuciya ki. Ba abin da zan faɗa sai dai in ce sai dai ni dai a gani na ne ba na ƙaunar ruga abba kaɗan ne ya ɓata da sarkai shi mai girma conference. Amma kuma cikin siyasa abin da nake gani shi ne ra'ayi. Ya kamata shi ma ne girma kwankwashe ya yi. To wani da aka tara jaman tsaro da manyan motoci kamar yaki ji. To lokacin da na zo government house din shiga da na ga wayannan motocin sai na ce to ko wani al'amari ne zai faru. Na dai ta tambaya to ba wanda ya bani aiki. To me wanda shawara ke ba al'umman Kano batun tashi hankali. Shawaran da zan ba al'umman Kano su daina jin cike ku gane cewa mai girma gwamna fa mai gaskiya ne da rufin farashi sannan da kafa ka filin da kwanto ka ne suna iya batawa gobe ka zo ka gan a tare dan haka kai wani can talaka da kake je ka zo ka shiga cikin wannan magana kai za ka shigo ya san ki kuma sana ni kila Abubakar what Hila Abubakar just trying to say here is the fact that she is also tense. Of course she believes that the citizens of Kano should calm down and allow the politicians do their thing instead of, creating, fake news on social media, trying to create tension in the state. And that's what explains the reason why you can see armored vehicles right around the government house. And that, of course, she as a citizen of Kano, she continues to be law abiding. And of course, she's calling on her fellow citizens, to stop heating up the polity by bringing up unnecessary discussion, either physical or social media, thereby causing tension in the state. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Bagudu. Please stay safe. And we do know that Kano can sometimes be a hotbed, but hopefully this will be a calm one. Thank you so much. Away from Kano, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has sued the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, over its alleged failure to account for 55.9 billion naira allocated for election materials for the 2019 general elections. In a statement issued on Sunday by its Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, Serap said the funds were meant for smart card readers, ballot papers, and result sheets and other key election materials. The group says the allegation is contained in the latest report of the Auditor General of the Federation published on September 9, 2025. Serap insists INEC must be free of corruption to guarantee credible, free and fair elections and protect Nigeria's constitutional rights. It adds that transparency, accountability and respect for the rule of law are essential for the electoral body to function properly. No hearing date has been set for this shoot. Now, attention is shifting to the Federal Capital Territory as preparations intensify for the upcoming area council elections in Abuja. While political parties and candidates are gearing up for the polls, concerns are being raised over the possibility of voter exclusion, a situation some civil society groups describe as voter apathy. News Central's Bettina Nweli reports.
The area council elections in Abuja are expected to determine grassroots leadership across the 6 councils of the Federal Capital Territory. As the election date draws closer, residents are expressing mixed feelings. They hope for democratic participation on one hand and fears of disenfranchisement on the other.
There's no democracy in Nigeria. I have my voter's card within FCT here, but I'm not interested in concerning anything, politics in Nigeria. It doesn't have anything to do with youth. Democracy within themselves, then that it has. So I'm not interested.
First and foremost, I have my voter's card as a Nigerian citizen, and I want to vote to whom I wish to vote for. Yes. So I want to vote as a Nigerian citizen, and as you can see, this is my voter's card.
People are really not so keen in voting nowadays. I think the responsibility is on the part of INEC to do more electioneering education.
The Independent National Electoral Commission says that it is committed to conducting free, fair, and inclusive elections, urging all eligible voters to verify their registration details ahead of time.
We are working with the security operatives, the police as the lead agency there, kind of to secure the environment for elections before, during, and after elections. This to boost the confidence of the people in the electoral process and encourage their participation. In terms of apathy, we are embarking on robust sensitization to let the people understand the importance of an exercise like this. On the part of the commission, we have a mandate to ensure that the elections, is credible, is fair and inclusive.
With the polls fast approaching, all eyes will be on electoral authorities and stakeholders to ensure that every eligible voter is given an equal opportunity to participate in the democratic process. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Nweli.
When the 6th edition returns, schools resume across the country after the Christmas holiday. Details in a moment. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, look at a recap of our top stories. Security forces strike hard, kill scores in Kogi bandit crackdown. Heavy security at Government House Kanu ahead of Governor Yusuf's planned defection from the NNPP. Iran says it's prepared for war if the US intervenes after hundreds were killed in protests. Well, some good news, as the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors has suspended its planned nationwide strike earlier scheduled to resume on January the 12th. A decision followed an emergency virtual meeting of the association's National Executive Council to review progress on its demand. Now it says the suspension is strategic, pending further assessment at its January the 25th NEC meeting and not connected to a judgment from or a ruling from the industrial court. The association confirmed receiving firm confirmations from commitments from key ministries and government agencies after the intervention of the Vice President Kashim Shettima. The resident doctors had threatened there's a strike over welfare, allowances, and working conditions, while a court order had also restrained them from industrial actions. I'm now being joined by Dr. Mohammed Suleiman, President, Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so good news, because over the weekend, a couple of people had gone to the hospital, and we do know that some other health workers are currently on strike, especially in the FCT. So that in itself is a problem. So if NARD had gone ahead with this strike, it would have been an added pressure on Nigerians who are seeking healthcare, especially in the FCT. But what happened? First, we hear there's a court injunction from the industrial court that you guys are barred from going on any industrial action. And then suddenly you're suspending the strike. What happened?
Thank you for having me. Good evening to our viewers. From Tuesday last week, the Minister for Labour and Employment called for a conciliation meeting between NARD and the Ministry of Health. And we had robust conversations. Following those conversations, we had letters coming out specifically for promotion areas for medical officers. These compilations were transmitted to the Ministry of Finance. And then on the same day, compilations for salary areas for 4 hospitals, OUTHC Ile-Ife, FMC Owo, UUTH Uyo, and FUTH Tupo, were forwarded to Ministry of Finance. On Wednesday, we had another engagement at the Federal Ministry of Health, and then we talked about committees that has to do with locum employment policy. I also talked about the committee on excess workload, the work hour problem that we have. You know, we have doctors that are constantly on call every day, which is not sustainable. And then we had progress on that line. On Thursday, we had further conversations, which finally agreed to allow our members in Lokoja back to Lokoja. And the Ministry of Health has taken up processes for conciliation and for formal communication back to the hospital over in Lokoja. Now, this was in the backdrop. You had well-meaning Nigerians, senior members of the government, making calls, urging government to move on, urging not to also be at the discussion table for all of this. And then Friday, towards the later part of Friday, we saw on social media that there was a court injunction against NAD and its leaders and its leadership. And now, when we went for the National Executive Council meeting, we took about 4 hours debating some of these movements from the government side. And I can tell you the court injunction never surfaced in the conversation because progress had already been made even before that had happened. Now, juxtapose that against the intervention of the number 2 citizen of the country. I mean, when you're crying and then it is your father that is coming to say, stop crying, I will handle what your issues are. You're already on the front burner of the conversations. And then the NEC sat down, looked at it and said, yes, we trust the word of the Vice President. And then that word has been backed by action, and we would hope that the action will continue. However, the NEC is very particular about the timeline of 2 weeks, so that some of these things, because basically they are in the final processes of being implemented. We are in discussions with the Ministry of Finance for the professional allowance table to be implemented this month and be captured in the budget for these promotion areas I just mentioned, for the salary areas I just mentioned. We're in discussions with the Ministry of Finance for a payment plan. And then with the intervention of senior members of the government, the Vice President specifically, we hope.
It's really interesting to see that almost all your demands, and I say almost all because I know that there are some that you have put aside for now, but the one you mentioned about the excess workload, wouldn't that be your own fault? I mean, the members of NAD, a lot of you are leaving the country. You're jackbuying. So if those of you who have chosen to stay are given more work to do, I'm sure you'll be asking for compensation for that.
Yes.
But how about encouraging your colleagues to, like you, stay back, knowing that we need to build our health system?
So there are factors that pull and push people in and out of the country,
which is normal.
In 2014, we had about 16,000 resident doctors at the federal level. At the state level, 7,000. In the whole country, about 25,000. Today, by our own records of our own membership and payment platforms of federal government and state governments, we just have less than 11,000. In 2024, about 4,700 doctors left the shores of Nigeria. perhaps by the end of this month to February, we will know what the number is for 2025. Now, there are several things. Excess workload is one of it. It's not sustainable for a doctor to be on call every day for the entire month. And we have brought forward examples of this happening everywhere. Doctors have lost their lives on this. Now, several other factors complicate this. You have stagnation in professional advancement. You can see we're struggling about promotion areas way back till 2020. We're still discussing the membership certificate issues. So you have excess work. You have to struggle. You're not being promoted. You're not being compensated. You have to struggle to get your own right. You have to scream at the top of your lungs for your own professional recognition to be handed over to you. So this adds to frustrations. And countries outside Nigeria readily offer this. And we know the economic realities of the country. We know the security situation of the country. And then this contributes eventually in doctors leaving the shores of this country. As an association, two things are important. If doctors are not frustrated, exhausted, angry, and underappreciated, they will give out their best to the patients.
Let's look at, because Nigeria is considered one of the best training fields for medical doctors in the world.
Exactly.
I mean, when Nigerian doctors are stepping to the US or the UK, and even in the Asian countries, they are grabbed because they know that, one, in terms of work ethics, you have it, professionalism, it's there. So what are the things, at least part of the demands you're asking for, work conditions, and because we do know that every year doctors graduate from the Nigerian universities, both private and public universities. Is that also part of the things you're demanding for? And what's the traction on those demands?
Okay, first of all, I gave you a figure of how many doctors left Nigeria in 2024.
Yeah, about 4,000 plus.
4,000 plus. And
we don't know how many left in 2025.
Yes. In a year, Nigeria graduates 2,000 to 3,000 doctors. And if you look at the net migration, we're actually losing more. So what is the problem? We are the best. Nigeria produces the best, but we now ship out this best outwards. What we are asking is, especially for the work hour, if you go to the UK, 48 hours a week is the cap. Anything more than 48 hours, your supervisor has to explain why and account for it, either compensate you with remuneration or with holiday, to compensate for that. In Nigeria, you give over 100 hours as a resident physician. As a resident surgeon, you give over 120 hours per week. If you stretch that out, that is 5 to 6 days in a week that you are in the hospital working to save lives. At some point, it plays. You're tired, you're exhausted, it plays on your decision making. Complex cases come to these institutions that have resident doctors that require you to be at the top. At some point, you will make a mistake. And then when we make these mistakes, we're not forgiving. The system actually catches you, gives you the appropriate punishment, and then that adds to the frustration. What we're saying is government needs to sort out these issues so that it is better for the patient. It is better for our own people. And I can tell you, if work hour is corrected, we have colleagues that are ready to come back to the country to serve its nation.
If the work hours are worked and the conditions are good. What about in terms of graduation? I do know that some of those that are supposed to graduate are frustrated within the schools for one reason or the other, and sometimes victimized. Would that also be part of the things you'll be looking at going forward to ensure that their rights are not thwarted, so that they are not frustrated and opting out, so that we can have more doctors coming out?
Well, at this point, I must commend government, especially the Minister of Education, Tunji Alausa. I think he has brought forward novel ideas. You may have your reservations about the ideas, but they're looking at doubling the numbers that are being graduated from our universities. I mean, you could criticize it, but that is government taking initiative. Now, when the numbers are more, it is hope. The hope is that they will stay, but these push and pull factors are still going to be there. If you talk about victimization, I mean, any system has those issues here and there. I trained in Nigeria. I trained in ABU Zaria, and I can tell you it is the best of trainings that you can get. We're proud of the training our teachers give us here. We're proud of the government setting up, however inadequate it is. The system still produces the best that wherever you go in the world, you're recognized as such. We only hope that the ones we are producing are retained back in the country.
But this is like the last question I'll ask here. A lot of Nigerians just don't like to hear how no matter how germane the conditions, I mean, the issues you've talked about are, just don't want to hear that doctors are going on strike. I mean, what happened to your Hippocratic oath? That's what a lot of Nigerians will say. So what's the guarantee that are maybe, let's just say, for the next 2-3 years, we will not hear about NARD going on strike?
We tried that.
Yes.
We tried that. From 2022 till last year, NARD was never on strike. And then these issues kept piling from 1 to 2 up to 19.
But do you even go on strike for conditions in the hospitals?
Yes, we do. In fact, it's in our conversation on the table now. Infrastructure is a very, very key issue. Now, let me put it this way: the Hippocratic Oath encourages you, gives you that lifeline to save lives, but it also tells you, "Physician, heal thyself." Now, if you juxtapose these two things, it means you have to be sane, you have to be healthy for you to give out the best. The situation we're having in Nigeria is that in the next 10 years, 10,000 more doctors could leave. And then those that are left behind, I'm not going anywhere, those that are left behind will have excess more work to be done. We're only shouting at the top of our lungs now for government to recognize that we're heading into that ditch. It's a disaster. It's heading at us. We must do something to check it. It is not just for the doctors, it is for the good of the Nigerian patient.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate this conversation. Thank you, Doctor, for coming in, and thank you for speaking with us. We do hope that all of these things will be sorted out real quick so that we can walk into the hospitals and be at peace. Not just rushing to the private hospitals, even our public hospitals. Yes. Thank you so much. And do take care of you. I heard that you weren't feeling too well and you still had to come into the studio.
Yes.
We wish you quick recovery.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We had Dr. Mohammed Suleiman, President, Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, here in our studio. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Well done. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Kurudu residents on overflowing dump sites. Join us again. We had talked earlier about resumption of schools and the dump sites at Kurudu, but before we get to that, let's just step forward a bit and then we'll come back. A major shift in the U.S. immigration policy sparking debate over who gets to travel and at what price. A proposal linked to the Trump administration would require visitors from 38 countries to post a refundable visa bond of up to $15,000 just to be considered for entry. Supporters say the bond would curb visa overstay. Critics argue that it turns borders into paywalls, effectively reserving mobility for the wealthy. The payment does not guarantee a visa and comes alongside tougher screening and entry rules. Beyond tourism, the impact could ripple through families seeking reunification, small business owners, academics, artists, and professionals who depend on short-term U.S. travel. Diplomats warn that the policy risks straining ties and damaging America's image in a world where movement increasingly shapes opportunity. I'm being joined in the studio by Kimebi Ebienfa, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mr. Ebienfa, that news of a $15,000 visa bond came as a shock to many Nigerians. I do know a young man who was planning on travel this year, at least to the U.S., but suddenly he goes like, forget it, I don't have $15,000. I mean, what's the ministry thinking about?
I think first and foremost, to be very fair to them, it's not just 15,000 outright. It is 5,000, 10,000, and then 15,000.
Okay.
So
it's like a range.
They also specify that your intentions of what you want to do over there will determine what the consular officer that will interface with you during visa interview will compel you to pay.
Okay.
And also, paying the visa bond or having the resources to pay is not a guarantee that you'll be issued a visa. I think I'll need to make clarification that when it comes to visa, the authority or the prerogative lies with the issuing country. You can determine who want to come into your borders. You can determine who you will admit into your country.
So as it is now, going by this, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000.
Yes.
The U.S. has just said, forget about the U.S. if you don't have up to 5,000 naira sitting somewhere that is not budgeted.
Yeah.
Forget the U.S.
Yes.
And that's what a lot of people are wondering. There are many in Nigeria who, and not just in Nigeria, across the world, who sometimes just want to visit the U.S., visit family members, who are willing sometimes to buy the ticket from that end and they just go and come back for a 2-week stay or a 3-week stay. They just go and come back. So what does that say? Does Nigeria have that kind of reciprocal policy?
For now, no.
Okay.
We don't have that type of policy. And again, I want to explain that US is not the first country that is coming up with visa ban. There are other countries that have implemented similar measures, and sometimes it's because of the so-called attitude of nationals of particular countries, what they have done in those countries in the past before that would not warrant them to come up with policy that we feel that are a bit draconian or not people's friendly. And again, when you talk about foreign relations, diplomacy, the personal conviction of the president matters a lot. You will agree with me that in the second coming of Trump, if I will use that term, he has been trying to come up with policies that he termed America first, make America great again policies. Yeah. So this is the fallout of one of those policies. But there are other countries that I will not want to mention names that are fond of compelling Nigerians or nationals from third world countries to pay specific amount. One, they will argue that the money that you are paying is a guarantee that in case you default in your in existing the country, those funds will be used to get you back to your country. That means they will not be spending money to repatriate you back to your country, as the case may be. Nigeria, for now, we don't spend money in repatriating nationals of countries that have committed visa-related offenses in the country back to their country. We don't do that. We take it to the airport, but your ticket, you have to procure that. That is what we do. But I don't think any African country is even paying for repatriation of nationals that overstayed their time in their countries.
Okay, so but that is not a. But that then Nigeria or no African country has a visa bond for anybody coming in.
So I think, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think.
Is this something that the governments of Africa are beginning to consider?
I think we'll consider that, but basically the argument of those countries most times is that they want to use that a check against visa overstays, visa violations, as the case may be, which will not go down well with most of our nationals. For example, Nigerians are frequent travelers. We have most families that have their siblings in particular country that they want to spend holiday with them. I think there are cases whereby some persons that came for Christmas are having difficulties in going back because they are being stamped out. They've received email messages that they will not be admitted back to the country. Okay. So those scenarios are not pleasant for our nationals. There are people that will suffer for it, people that are schooling that are over here, but because of maybe one or two violations in the past before their movement or their admission into the country now will be restricted. It's not a good one for us, but as Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the target is not on Nigerians alone. If you have seen the release from the American State Department, there are a number of countries that this visa ban will be implemented against. So all what we need to do is to continue to engage them. Then if there are areas that will adopt reciprocity, which is the best that we can do, that is what we are going to do.
But this is not in any way affecting relations with the U.S.?
No, for now, no. Just as I said earlier, you, as a country, you have your sovereign duty to determine who comes into your country. The best the other partner or the other country would do is to implement same. For example, for government officials that are traveling, normally the practice was you apply for the visa, you with a note verbal, then you send your passport to the embassy, then you get your visa. But I think sometime last year, the US came up with a policy that no, apart from, I think, presidents, ministers, I think even permanent secretaries have to go for visa interviews. So when they did that, we instructed our missions to carry out same. So if we have the category of their nationals in that particular range that want to come over, they too be compelled to go for interviews. Okay. So it's just reciprocity at its best. So what you as far as the interests of your nationals are protected, you go on with that.
Right.
And again, I think it's a clarion call on our government, and I believe the present administration will try to work better to make, there are a lot of policies that have been introduced to make Nigeria more comfortable for Nigerians. So we try to stay put here to contribute to our country than just thinking about Japan and all this.
All right. Thank you so much. Kimiebi Ebienfa is a spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you for coming in this evening.
Thank you.
And we do hope that we'll be able to bring you back as soon as possible.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Now let's go on to that place, Kurudu, where residents and business owners say an unevacuated refuse dump has become a daily hazard. They say that waste evacuation is irregular, allowing refuse to spill onto the road, slowing down traffic, and in some cases triggering accidents. Beyond the safety risk, traders in the area say the stench and unsightly piles are driving customers away, affecting their livelihoods. Those affected are asking that the dump site, which has disrupted their routines and raised concerns about how waste management is being handled in this part of the Federal Capital Territory, should get to work and sort this out real quick.
They used to come and package, but after one month, sometimes 2 weeks, but now more than a month before they come and package. And after that, like accident, because enough accident. Like last week, 2 machines jammed me. So it's getting 3 months. Sometimes used to fully reach here by the center of the road, and which is wrong. I just opened shop here recently. I'm into fabrication and welding, and in most cases, this refuse used to come and dump it here. Sometimes it used to cause hold up, smelling, and it's like my business is affecting my business negatively. Because if people want to come and patronize me, if they look at how this place and all these people are here, sometimes they'll look at me like I'm a serious person in my own business.
Yanzu wannan wurin a ƙa'ida yadda ake yi idan ya cika za a zo a kwashe. One month bai cika wata ba ma inda ya cika ne kawai za a zo a kwashe. To amma yanzu yana haɗa gosulo saboda kin ga yayo haka da yawa. Ba ƙaramin azan ba ake a wannan wurin. Wallahi ɗazu daga nan tifa ta kwace ta dawo nan saboda kai ya kashe mutane.
As Nigerian schools resume for the second term after the Christmas break, students are excited to be back and teachers are optimistic for the 2025-2026 academic session. Some teachers note that learning activities are gradually picking up, attributing slow progress to low student turnout on the first day of resumption. Go on a quick break. When we return, we're looking at elections, electoral matters outside Nigeria. Just stay with us. Beyond the shores of Nigeria, electoral matters, voters in Benin have gone to the polls for parliamentary and local elections just weeks after authorities foiled an attempted coup in the country. The vote is taking place amid heightened political tension and heavy security, particularly in northern areas facing spillover attacks from jihadist groups operating in the Sahel. The elections are widely seen as a key test ahead of April's presidential poll, with President Patrice Talon nearing the end of his second and final term. While the ruling coalition is expected to maintain control of parliament, the main opposition party, the Democrats, have been barred from local elections and restricted in the presidential race over registration requirements. And in East Africa, Ugandans are heading to the polls on Thursday in elections expected to extend President Yoweri Museveni's decades-long rule. The 81-year-old incumbent, who has been in power since 1986, is facing pop star turned politician Bobi Wine in his second presidential challenge. Following the disputed 2021 elections, human rights groups have raised concerns over arrests, abductions, and restrictions on the media in the run-up to the vote. In the capital, Kampala, activities have slowed as many residents return to their villages amid fears of a security crackdown. Bobi Wine was seen campaigning in a flak jacket, underscoring the tense atmosphere. And away from politics, Sudan's Prime Minister Camille Idris has announced the government's return to Khartoum, nearing nearly 3 years after relocating to Port Sudan during the conflict. The army-aligned administration fled the capital in April 2023 when fighting erupted with the Rapid Support Forces. The return follows the military's recapture of Khartoum last March. Speaking in the capital, Idris promised improvements to electricity, water, healthcare, and education services. While relative calm has returned, Drone strikes persist and fighting continues in other regions. The conflict has displaced around 11 million people, contributing to the world's largest humanitarian and hunger crisis. Iran says it is fully prepared for war if the United States intervenes following nationwide anti-government protests that have left hundreds dead and thousands detained. Officials, including Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, stressed that while Tehran does not seek conflict, it will defend itself if attacked and remains open to fair negotiations. They spoke on Monday as pro-government demonstrations swept across Iran. The unrest fueled by economic hardship and demands for political reform has escalated as security forces cracked down on demonstrators. The authorities blame foreign powers for instigating the unrest and have imposed widespread internet blackouts to control communication. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned of very strong options, including possible military action, raising fears of regional escalations. Tehran insists any foreign attack will be met with retaliation, even as diplomatic channels remain open. Meanwhile, thousands of people gathered outside Downing Street in London, showing solidarity with Iranians protesting rising living costs and political repression at home. The demonstration in Iran began on December the 28th, sparked by shopkeepers and citizens responding to soaring inflation and the collapsing trial. The unrest has since spread nationwide with calls for an end to the Islamic Republic's decades-long rule. The London rally highlights growing international attention to the crisis. Participants held banners and chanted in support of human rights and political change, reflecting the concerns of the Iranian diaspora and global communities. Meanwhile, more than 2,000 people marched through central Paris to show solidarity with the unprecedented wave of protest in Iran as demonstrators called for political change and support for the Iranian people. Staying with the Iran situation, U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran has reached out to Washington with a proposal to negotiate, signaling a possible diplomatic opening amid heightened tensions. Speaking to reporters, Trump said a meeting with the Iranian leaders is being set up, though he gave no details on timing or venue. He also warned that the U.S. could still act if circumstances change before talks begin. The comments come as widespread unrest and security concerns continue inside Iran, with Tehran yet to publicly confirm the outreach.
Iran called to negotiate. Yesterday. The leaders of Iran called, they want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States. Iran wants to negotiate. We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up. But we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting. But a meeting is being set up. Iran called, they want to negotiate.
And China has weighed in on the rising tensions between the United States and Iran, rejecting foreign interference and urging all parties to exercise restraint to avoid further escalation. A spokesperson for China's foreign ministry said Beijing opposes external interference in Iran's internal affairs and stressed that dialogue, not pressure or military threats, is the right path to stability.
中方希望伊朗政府和人民能够克服当前的困难，保持国家的稳定。我们一贯反对干涉别国内政，一贯主张各国的主权和安全都应当受到国际法的充分保护，反对在国际关系中使用武力或威胁使用武力。我们呼吁各方多做有利于中东。
Well, let's talk a bit of sports now. Earlier today, the Super Eagles of Nigeria traveled from Fez to Rabat in Morocco ahead of their highly anticipated semi-final clash against the Atlas Lions of Morocco, 5 p.m. Nigerian time on Wednesday, January 14th at the Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium. Our sports correspondent Udoka Njoku is in Rabat and has more updates regarding the Super Eagles. Hello, Udoka.
Behind me now is where the Super Eagles will be camped ahead of that game between Nigeria and Morocco, talking about the semi-final clash. The players just landed, and we are hearing that they traveled by road all the way from Fez to Rabat, about 3 hours journey. Of course, if the journey is not up to 4 hours, CAF will enable you to travel by road. But the players have landed. They'll be having a recovery training later today, and of course tomorrow will be the press conference ahead of that game between Nigeria and Morocco. We are all looking forward to it. The players actually look very tired heading into the hotel, but I hope that they will get enough rest because it is a crucial encounter between Nigeria and Morocco. The fans are buzzing. The country is buzzing. The fans here in Morocco are really, really buzzing and eager to see Victor Osimhen and the other players feature for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But of course, the promise is to be an epic encounter. From Riyadh Hotel here in Rabat, I am Udoka Njoku for News Central TV.
Well, everyone, I think the whole of Africa, and indeed the world's looking forward to that game on Wednesday. It's, as they say, it's going to be a cracker. So you don't want to miss it. Let's get yourself ready for that game. And those of us that know how to pray, to pray and hope that it will not just be a cracker, but it will be a cracker that will favor the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Yes, I'm a Nigerian and I want the Super Eagles to win, but I'm African and I'm also hoping that the best team will win. But that's it on the 6th edition for today. Just a look at the recap before we go. We told you that security forces have struck real hard and killed scores in Kogi bandit crackdown, and that heavy security was sighted at the Kanu State Government House ahead of Governor Yusuf's planned defection. We also told you that Iran says it's prepared for war if the US intervened after hundreds were killed in protests. Let's hear from you. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on your screen. Yes, that's it. +234 7055 001212. Do follow us on social media as well. On all the social media platforms, we are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. I'm Neota Igbe.